a lot of these solutions in
Yeah.
their heads too.
I know it's so refreshing to hear this, because I think one of the things in the sort of traditional L&D space that we've struggled with is that we feel accountability to organize and curate on the behalf of our
Mm,
learners, right? And of course, today it's impossible. Like, it's just impossible to do that. And so this sort of instinct to organize everything and get everything cleaned
yeah,
up, and then present it to learners, versus to co-create
yeah,
and figure out kind of what's important, and perhaps enable the process of filtering and curation, and make that the outcome that we're looking for, rather than do it on everybody's
yeah.
behalf.
And it requires a lot of humility and openness that's hard to have. It's just hard to have.
Yes, yes, it sure
Yeah,
is. And especially when you're disciplined, the 100-year-old discipline of kind of workplace learning and time and motion and all that kind of good stuff, is grounded on the opposite. It's grounded on, defined learning objectives and the required training and all that kind
yeah,
of good stuff.
yeah.
Big sort of inflection point, I think, for the sector. I've been thinking a lot about the importance of physical space to promote and encourage and support the learning process. And I spent most of my career thinking about digital tools for
Yeah.
learning. That's how old I am. And recently, I've had revelation a little bit about, boy, space is really
Hmm.
important. At the center that I toured at USC, they built the architecture of the building to sort of promote what they call these sort of deliberate convergences and collisions was their
Yeah.
word, where people would run into each other at the water cooler in all kinds of different ways, and it sort of provokes exchange of knowledge and so on and so forth. I know that the headquarters building at Airbnb, I haven't been there myself yet, but I've heard it's a really extraordinary space,
Yeah.
and it really celebrates a lot of the principles and the themes sort of that underlie the company. Do you think about space in the learning context?
Yeah. I mean, so there's actually a head of design here that focuses on space by the name of Aaron Harvey, who thinks really deeply about what this place looks like and how it's designed and how it's built for those kinds of collisions. And of course, that too is an iterative process where we're learning and getting better at this over time. The thing that you'll notice about Airbnb when you walk in straight away is it's just deeply, deeply, deeply human. The conference rooms are all modeled after our host listings. So you feel like you're in a home in Milan,
Wow.
or you feel like you're in somebody's
Yeah.
kitchen in Paris, or you feel like you're in someone's living room in Morocco, right? So you're traveling the world as you go from meeting to meeting to meeting, which is meant to sort of keep the mission at the forefront and really literally have you travel throughout your day. What is sort of uh, been designed further beyond that in terms of the space are just these hubs throughout that have communities or neighborhoods built around them. Um, some people have desks that are assigned to them. Some people float. This sort of belong anywhere notion is one that we hold not just out in our mission and for our hosts and guests, but also here at work. So the idea is that you should be able to plop down and work no matter where you are. We are distributed around San Francisco. We have
Mm.
locations around the world. We are striving, I think, as a company to promote as much mobility among our employees as possible so that no matter where you are, you could instantly be working. Um, but the there is no question that the space is, I think, um,
Hmm.
primarily constructed for those collisions. Um, does that mean it's hard to get heads down work done? Yeah, sometimes it does, and people account for that by either putting on headphones or, frankly, working from home, which is a very acceptable way to work here. It's not uncommon for someone to be sitting on a phone call from home and watching their kid climb into their lap, and nobody misses a beat and just keeps going, because we all need a little bit something different from the way we work.
You have a leadership program that I think is called Amplify. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. Yep. That's
And
right.
I read a profile that Danny Johnson wrote of the program, and it uses spaced learning and nudges. I'm really interested in this
Yeah,
concept of nudge from, I think, originally like behavioral economics, that says, people need to be prompted to learn. It's hard work to learn, and you have to pay attention, and sometimes you just got to kind of like nudge people. How do you think about that? Is that part of the program?
absolutely. I mean, Ebbinghaus coined this the forgetting curve, right? This idea that one-time
Yes.
exposure to something means that you're going to walk away and forget it unless it's brought to your attention again and again and again, and then slowly the curve starts to drop off and you retain, right? So this is actually something that
Mm-hmm.
Ebbinghaus locked into over 100 years ago. Like, that's a pretty old concept. The thing about neuroscience is that neuroscience has come along and actually borne that out, right? They've validated it through studying brains and connections, et cetera. So we know that something has to be put in front of something repeatedly in order for them to retain it. That's only even more true in an environment like this one, where we are constantly inundated with information and where people are consuming tremendous amounts of noise, just tremendous amounts of noise. So um, our noise
Mm-hmm.
to signal ratio needs to be really tight. We need to be thinking for our learners, how do we bring this to your attention time and time again, but not in a way that results in noise, but results rather in behavior change and impact? And we're still working at that. We're still trying to figure that out. But what it means for us so far in terms of our design work is that um, Amplify has 3 chapters. Each one of them is a month long. And through that month, you're exposed to a bunch of different content where you're getting together in small meetup groups, talking with your cohort about what it is you're dealing with, what you're learning, how it relates back to your day to day. Culminating in an immersion where we really
Mm-hmm.
put that into practice so that when they leave, they have very, very clear actions that they're going to take. And then they receive a bunch of nudges that are reminding them, remember this thing we talked about? Now would be a great time to go and try it. That's what we've done so far. I think that there is so much more yet to do, um, because the scaffolding for leadership is frankly ongoing. All the work comes in the practice. It's feedback in the practice that becomes super important. So while we've sort of played with this to this point and gotten this far, boy, we still, I think, could go a lot further in figuring out how we
Yeah.
extend this as an ongoing, really, frankly, yoga practice for leaders, knowing that leadership is hard work and it's never done. It's just never
Mm.
done.
Interesting. I've seen this work in a really micro way with language training, specifically around a product that I use called Scritter,
Hmm.
which is to help you learn Chinese characters, which takes a lot of repetition,
Yeah,
and they use these algorithms that sort of prompt you, hey, you just jot down the character for tree, and then it'll sort of, if you do that very accurately, it'll kind of move on to the next thing, but it'll prompt you at unusual times. So like in a really micro
yeah,
way, I've seen that sort of being experimented with. It's very interesting, but
amazing.
I'm really interested in how it works at a sort of bigger macro programs. I think what you mentioned, cohorts, super
Yeah,
important, and these sort of learning journeys, putting people on journeys, seems to be important, and of course resonates with your mission
yeah,
too.
yeah.
2 more questions, Kate, because then we're running out of time here, and it's driving me nuts. Technology.
Yeah,
There's so much to talk about.
yeah,
Technology, we talked about design. The other half of your company is clearly data technology.
yeah.
Are you using technology in a learning context? Are you using data in a learning context? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, so to the way that we're using technology is we have a learning experience platform called Degree that we really were curious about because it was going to enable to set up pathways for which we are not just drawing upon, frankly, free content that's out in the world that's really good, to content out of Harvard that we subscribe to, that we leverage within our programs, to our own written content. It enables us to curate pathways and contextualize them for Airbnb, because more and more our role is not necessarily always to be expert. It's to really diagnose, curate, contextualize so that we can learn with the people who work here. And Degreed in many respects is enabling that. It's enabling us to curate and contextualize things that we hope and we think and hope will be helpful to the people who are here. Um, the a lot of people subscribe to an LMS. We don't really have an LMS. What we've done is connect our programs to a learning events calendar that can be leveraged by anyone in the company who's pulling together learning
Yeah.
events, so that people can understand what's going on, enroll in them, etc. But it's not sort of this sort of overwrought LMS platform that I think so many companies have invested really heavily in. I think the next big frontier for us is going to be, how do we get learning into the work stream? How do we nudge people in such a way that it's arriving at the right place at the right time? And while there's interesting things going on in the market, I'll put out a call for action here. I've not seen that arrive just yet. So what we need is, I'm very clear that this person is learning this thing. I'm going to help form their habit around this thing, serving up just the right piece at the right time based on their own even learning preferences. That would be a level of sort of contextualization around habit forming that would be a holy grail.
In the flow of work, per se.
Exactly.
Okay. I think I already said this. 2 more questions. So genuinely 2 more questions now. But really hard questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, what is hard about your work? Where do you think we've got a lot of progress to make to really help create that sense of belonging at work and give people the tools to be agile and thrive in this crazy growth environment?
Well, I'm pretty sure you talked to Lisa K. Solomon on one of your podcasts, and she and I have definitely talked about this. It's by all accounts, it's speed. The biggest enemy for what we're doing here is speed, because while content is consumable and you can start acting upon it, what's missing in an environment like this is the permission and the opportunity to stop and reflect. And honestly, this is why I think most people pay coaches a lot of money, is that they give you permission. You pay them so that they will stop you in your tracks and get you to sit down and reflect. And that is that is just a prize, a very much needed commodity that is very much lacking. So my biggest challenge is that it's the fact that people don't have time to stop and reflect, because that's where, frankly, all the learning happens. It's just like building muscle. Your muscles actually build once you've stopped working out. They don't build in the middle of the workout. They actually get torn down in the workout. That's what's going on with our brains. Same thing.
Absolutely. Kind of after the event, putting pieces together.
Yeah.
Great, really super answer. And let me know when you figure that out.
Yeah, sure.
For sure. Last question. I find many people who do this kind of work, and the people that I get to hang out with, sort of helping others develop and grow, whether it's in schools or colleges or the workplace, feel like they have a sense of mission. Can you talk about your relationship with learning and teaching? Was there a time or a person or an experience who inspired you to follow your path?
Do I have to tell you the answer to that without crying?
It's really up to you. I'm not Oprah. Share what you feel comfortable with.
So yes, absolutely. I mean, I can think of so many people who've given me tremendous gifts. I mean, I in my elementary school years, it was Carol Valdrighi who pulled me aside and said, "I think you're going to be the next Diane Sawyer, and here's why." Or a really great friend and mentor of mine named Alan Silva, who has taught me a lot, frankly, about the world of learning, and has really helped me sort of frame some of the challenges we face. He has helped me make sense of so much of what I'm encountering now. There's a very long list of people for whom I'm very grateful. And if I could pay forward an ounce of what they've given me, boy, I would be happy.
That's lovely. That's a lovely answer. Hey, we've taken a lot of your time on Friday afternoon, but you're on an amazing journey there, and we're very grateful for you taking time to share your story with us so far. Hopefully, we'll talk again. That was a very noisy motorcycle going past. I'm going to say that once. I'm going to say that once more time, because there's some Harley Davidson convention going on outside. So, Kate, I really want to thank you for your time on this Friday afternoon and sharing your story and your thinking about, how to do great workplace learning in this extraordinary environment of Airbnb. I hope we get to talk again at some point. And I wish you
Oh,
really
me
the
too.
best of luck on your mission. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you. So fun to talk with you.
I thought the future would be cooler.